Have you ever wondered what it feels like to step into a land where time slows down, where every village, river, and forest holds stories older than centuries, and where nature and culture exist in perfect harmony? Welcome to Belarus, a hidden gem in the heart of Europe, a country that defies expectation, where history, folklore, and untouched landscapes collide to create experiences that stay with you forever. From ancient forests and majestic lakes to wooden villages, frozen in time, and breathtaking castles that whisper secrets of the past, Belarus is waiting to reveal its soul. Join us as we journey through the wonders of Belarus, a place where every corner feels cinematic, every moment unforgettable, and every sight leaves you in awe. A city where grand boulevards stretch endlessly, where Soviet monuments stand beside modern glass towers, and where history quietly shapes every street corner. This is Minsk, the capital of Belarus, and the powerful heart of a country many travelers overlook, yet never forget once they discover it. Minsk is not just a city. It is a living timeline of Eastern Europe, rebuilt from ruins, shaped by empires, and transformed into a modern cultural hub. As you arrive, the first thing you notice is space. Wide avenues, open squares, and massive buildings give Minsk a unique, monumental feel. It feels orderly, calm, and surprisingly futuristic at the same time. Independence Avenue is the city's main artery, one of the longest avenues in Europe, lined with Stalinist architecture, theaters, universities, and government buildings. It feels like a grand, open-air museum. The buildings are massive, symmetrical, and imposing, designed to inspire awe and power. Yet, at street level, cafes, shops, and people going about their daily lives soften the atmosphere, making the city feel welcoming and alive. Independence Square is one of the largest public squares in Europe. Here, modern glass structures blend with historic buildings, and fountains reflect the city lights at night. Beneath the square lies an underground mall, showing how Minsk combines tradition with modern urban life. At night, the square becomes a glowing centerpiece, where locals gather, walk, and enjoy the calm rhythm of the city. Victory Square tells a more emotional story. Dominated by a tall obelisk and an eternal flame, it honors Belarus's immense sacrifices during World War II. Minsk was almost completely destroyed during the war, and much of what you see today is the result of massive post-war reconstruction. Walking through this square, you feel the resilience of a city that refused to disappear. Trinity Hill, or Trinity Suburb, offers a completely different atmosphere. This charming, historic district features colorful houses, cobblestone streets, small museums, and riverside cafes. It feels like stepping back into the 19th century. Artists, musicians, and tourists gather here, creating a cozy and creative vibe that contrasts beautifully with the city's monumental architecture. The Nesvizh River flows through Minsk, adding a peaceful touch to the city. Along its banks, you'll find parks, walking paths, and quiet spots where people relax, cycle, or enjoy the scenery. In summer, the riverbanks are full of life, while in winter, the city transforms into a calm, snow-covered landscape that feels almost cinematic. Minsk is also a city of culture. The National Opera and Ballet Theater is one of the most impressive in Eastern Europe, both architecturally and artistically. Concert halls, art galleries, and museums showcase Belarusian history, literature, and modern art. From classical performances to contemporary exhibitions, Minsk offers a rich cultural experience. The city's nightlife and food scene are growing fast. Trendy cafes, stylish bars, and restaurants serve everything from traditional Belarusian dishes like draniki and borscht to international cuisine. Молодежь, the younger generation, brings energy and creativity to the city, giving Minsk a youthful and modern spirit. Despite its size and importance, Minsk feels safe and calm. Streets are clean, public transport is efficient, and people are friendly but reserved. There is a sense of order and quiet confidence that makes the city unique among European capitals. At sunset, Minsk transforms. The wide avenues glow with golden light, reflections shimmer on the river, and the city lights slowly come alive. Skyscrapers, monuments, and historic buildings blend into a skyline that feels both classic and futuristic. From above, Minsk looks like a carefully designed city from a film. Minsk is the perfect introduction to Belarus. It shows the country's resilience, culture, and modern identity. It is a city that doesn't try to impress loudly, but leaves a strong impression through its scale, history, and calm beauty. This is Minsk, the heart of Belarus, where the past stands tall, the present moves quietly, and the future rises steadily above wide, open streets. A castle rising from misty fields, its red brick towers reflected in a quiet lake, its walls whispering stories of kings, wars, and forgotten legends. This is Mir Castle, one of the most breathtaking and romantic landmarks in Belarus, a place that feels like it was taken straight out of a medieval fairy tale. Mir Castle stands in the small town of Mir, yet its presence feels monumental. Built in the 16th century, this fortress has witnessed centuries of conflict, power, and elegance. As you approach, the castle's 5 tall towers dominate the landscape, their Gothic and Renaissance design creating a dramatic silhouette against the sky. The contrast between red brick walls, stone details, and green surroundings makes Mir Castle one of the most photogenic sites in Eastern Europe. Originally built as a defensive fortress, Mir Castle was designed to withstand sieges and invasions. Thick walls, narrow windows, and strategic towers allowed defenders to monitor and protect the surrounding lands. Over time, the castle passed through the hands of powerful noble families, including the Radziwiłłs dynasty, one of the most influential aristocratic families in Eastern Europe. Under their rule, the castle transformed from a military fortress into a luxurious residence. Inside, the castle reveals a completely different world. Grand halls, ornate ceilings, and decorative fireplaces reflect the lifestyle of European nobility. Walking through its corridors, you can imagine royal banquets, political meetings, and elegant dances that once took place within these walls. Each room tells a story, blending medieval austerity with Renaissance elegance. The castle courtyard is a highlight. Surrounded by towering walls and balconies, it feels intimate yet majestic. In the center, you can stand and look up at the towers, feeling the weight of history rising around you. Today, cultural events, concerts, and festivals are often held here, bringing life back to this centuries-old fortress. Mir Castle is also surrounded by a beautiful landscape park and a tranquil lake. The water reflects the castle's towers, creating a mirror-like image that changes with the seasons. In summer, the area is lush and green, while in autumn, golden leaves frame the castle like a painting. In winter, snow covers the towers and walls, turning the entire scene into a magical winter fairy tale. Legends add to the castle's mystique. Locals speak of secret tunnels connecting Mir Castle to nearby towns, used for escape or hidden transport. Ghost stories and mysterious tales surround the castle, with some claiming that spirits of former residents still walk its halls at night. Whether you believe them or not, the atmosphere after sunset feels mysterious and enchanting. Mir Castle has survived wars, invasions, and political changes. It was damaged during conflicts, but carefully restored, preserving its historical and architectural beauty. Today, it is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrated for its unique blend of Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque architecture. Visiting Mir Castle is like stepping back into medieval Europe. You walk through ancient gates, climb towers, and gaze out over fields that have changed little over centuries. The silence of the countryside, combined with the castle's towering presence, creates a powerful sense of time travel. As the sun sets, the castle's red bricks glow warmly. Shadows stretch across the courtyard, and the lake reflects the fading light. The towers stand tall against the darkening sky, reminding you of centuries of history, power, and human ambition. Mir Castle is not just a building. It is a symbol of Belarusian heritage, a monument to medieval Europe, and one of the most stunning castles on the continent. It captures the imagination, invites exploration, and leaves visitors with the feeling that they have walked through a real-life fairy tale. A palace so elegant and powerful that it shaped the destiny of an entire region for centuries. A place where nobles planned alliances, artists created masterpieces, and legends were born in candlelit halls. This is Nesvizh Castle, one of the most magnificent aristocratic residences in Eastern Europe, and a symbol of Belarusian grandeur. Nesvizh Castle rises from the quiet countryside like a royal vision. Surrounded by water, gardens, and ancient trees, it feels less like a fortress and more like a royal city hidden behind walls. Built in the 16th century, it became the main residence of the Radziwiłłs family one of the most influential noble dynasties in European history. For generations, they ruled lands, commanded armies, and influenced politics across Belarus, Lithuania, and Poland. As you approach the castle, its massive walls and elegant towers create a stunning first impression. Unlike the purely defensive look of medieval fortresses, Nesvizh blends military strength with Renaissance and Baroque elegance. Wide gates lead into a grand courtyard, where architecture and symmetry create a sense of power and refinement. You immediately feel that this was not just a home, but a center of power and culture. Inside, Nesvizh Castle reveals a world of luxury. Ornate halls, richly decorated ceilings, carved wooden doors, and antique furniture tell stories of aristocratic life. Each room reflects a different era and artistic style, showing how the palace evolved over centuries. The ballroom, with its elegant chandeliers and polished floors, once hosted grand dances and diplomatic gatherings. Imagine nobles in elegant dresses and uniforms, music filling the air, and history being shaped in whispered conversations. The library and art collections were once among the finest in Eastern Europe. The Radziwiłłs family collected rare books, paintings, and artifacts from across the continent. Scholars, artists, and diplomats visited Nesvizh, making it a hub of intellectual and cultural life. Walking through these rooms today, you can almost feel the presence of past minds and ambitions. The castle's underground passages add another layer of mystery. Secret corridors and tunnels were built for security, escape, and discreet movement. Legends say that some tunnels stretch for kilometers, connecting the castle to distant towns. Stories of hidden treasures and lost chambers continue to fascinate visitors, giving Nesvizh an aura of intrigue and adventure. Outside the palace, the gardens and parks are just as impressive. Landscaped in European styles, they feature long pathways, lakes, bridges, and quiet corners for reflection. The surrounding water creates beautiful reflections of the castle, especially at sunrise and sunset. In spring and summer, the gardens bloom with color, while autumn paints the park in deep gold and red tones. In winter, the castle and trees are covered in snow, turning the entire estate into a royal winter dream. Nesvizh Castle is also known for its legends and ghost stories. The most famous tale is of the Black Lady of Nesvizh, believed to be the spirit of a noblewoman who still walks the corridors at night. Whether true or not, the quiet halls and dimly lit rooms create a mysterious atmosphere that captivates visitors. The castle endured wars, occupations, and political changes, yet it survived. Restoration efforts brought back its former glory, preserving its architecture and history. Today, Nesvizh Castle is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, recognized as one of the most important aristocratic residences in Europe. Visiting Nesvizh is like stepping into a royal time capsule. You walk through gates once guarded by soldiers, halls once filled with nobles, and gardens designed for kings and queens. The silence of the countryside contrasts with the grandeur of the palace, creating a powerful and unforgettable experience. As the sun sets over Nesvizh, the castle's walls glow softly, reflections shimmer in the water, and shadows stretch across the gardens. The palace stands quietly, holding centuries of stories within its walls. Nesvizh Castle is not just a landmark. It is a symbol of power, culture, and elegance, a place where history feels alive and every corridor tells a story waiting to be heard. A place where history is not just remembered, but felt in every stone, every sculpture, and every silent corridor. A place that became a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable spirit. This is Brest Fortress, one of the most powerful and emotional landmarks in Belarus. Brest Fortress stands near the western border of the country, where Europe's histories have collided for centuries. From the outside, it looks like a massive red brick citadel, surrounded by rivers and greenery. But as you step inside, the atmosphere changes. The air feels heavier, quieter, as if the walls themselves are carrying the memory of what happened here. In June 1941, Brest Fortress became one of the first targets of the German invasion during World War II. The fortress was attacked, suddenly and brutally. Cut off from supplies and surrounded by enemy forces, the defenders, soldiers, border guards, and civilians fought against overwhelming odds. For weeks, small groups resisted in underground tunnels, ruined barracks, and hidden chambers, refusing to surrender even when hope seemed impossible. Today, the fortress is a vast memorial complex dedicated to that heroic resistance. As you enter, you pass through a massive star-shaped gate cut into concrete. Inside, A long corridor plays recordings of wartime songs and announcements, immersing you in the emotions of that era. The sound echoes through the passage, preparing you for what lies ahead. The central square is dominated by the colossal monument, called Courage. This enormous sculpture shows a soldier's face emerging from stone, staring forward with determination and pain. It represents not just one person, but the spirit of all who defended the fortress. Nearby, the eternal flame burns in silence, surrounded by engraved names of fallen heroes. Walking through the ruins of the barracks, you see bullet marks, collapsed walls, and remnants of daily life frozen in time. These buildings were once filled with families, soldiers, laughter, and routine. During the siege, they became shelters, hospitals, and battle positions. Standing here, it is impossible not to imagine the fear, bravery, and human stories that unfolded in these corridors. The fortress also includes the Church of St. Nicholas, a beautiful Orthodox church that survived the war and has been restored. Its domes rise above the ruins, symbolizing faith, endurance, and renewal. Inside, candles flicker quietly, and visitors pause in reflection, connecting the spiritual with the historical. Museums within the complex display weapons, uniforms, letters, and personal items of the defenders. You can read messages scratched into walls by soldiers who knew they might not survive. These words are simple, yet incredibly powerful. They remind you that history is not just dates and events, but real people with hopes, families, and dreams. Outside the memorial area, the rivers and green parks create a peaceful contrast. Birds fly over calm water, children play in nearby areas, and life continues. This contrast makes Brest Fortress even more moving. It shows how places of tragedy can become spaces of memory, learning, and peace. Brest Fortress is not only a Belarusian symbol, it is recognized across the former Soviet world as a monument to resistance and heroism. School groups, veterans, tourists, and historians visit to understand what happened here, and to honor those who stood their ground against impossible odds. As you walk through the fortress at sunset, the red bricks glow softly, long shadows stretch across the grass, and the monuments stand in silent dignity. The sound of the river and the wind through trees create a quiet, respectful atmosphere. It feels less like a tourist site and more like a sacred space. Brest Fortress teaches a powerful lesson about resilience, courage, and memory. It reminds visitors that history can be painful, but remembering it is essential. The fortress stands not only as a memorial to the past, but as a message to the future. This is Brest Fortress, a place where bravery was carved into stone, where silence speaks louder than words, and where the spirit of resistance will never be forgotten. Imagine standing at the edge of history, where every stone feels alive with memory, courage, and sacrifice. This is not just another travel stop. This is a place that shaped a nation's spirit. Welcome to Brest Fortress, one of the most powerful and emotional landmarks in Belarus. Brest Fortress sits near the border with Poland, where the Bug River quietly flows, but its story is anything but quiet. When you walk through the massive gates, the atmosphere changes. The city noise fades, and you feel a heavy stillness that commands respect. This fortress is more than a monument. It is a symbol of resilience, bravery, and survival against impossible odds. The fortress was built in the 19th century as a military stronghold, but it became world famous during World War II. In 1941, when Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, Brest Fortress was one of the first targets. The defenders were outnumbered, cut off from supplies, and surrounded. Yet, they refused to surrender. For days and even weeks, small groups of soldiers and civilians held their ground, fighting until the very end. The resistance became legendary across the Soviet Union and beyond. As you walk deeper inside, you will see the massive stone structures, ruined walls, and preserved barracks. These are not reconstructed movie sets. These are real ruins, left as they were, so visitors can feel the weight of history. Bullet holes, shattered bricks, and scorched walls still remain, silent witnesses to the battles that took place here. One of the most striking sights is the monumental sculpture, Courage. This enormous stone figure rises from the earth, showing the face of a determined soldier. His expression is calm, strong, and unbreakable. Standing in front of it, you feel small, not just in size, but in comparison to the courage of those who defended this place. Nearby, the eternal flame burns day and night, honoring those who lost their lives. The sound of footsteps on the stone paths echoes softly, and many visitors speak in whispers, as if they are in a sacred place. It feels less like a tourist attraction and more like a living memorial. The fortress is also home to museums that tell the full story of the siege. Inside, you will find photographs, personal letters, weapons, uniforms, and artifacts recovered from the battlefield. Some of the most moving exhibits are the handwritten notes left by defenders on the walls, messages to loved ones, and final declarations of loyalty. These messages turn history into something deeply human and personal. But Brest Fortress is not only about war and sorrow, it is also about peace, remembrance, and the power of memory. Today, families walk through the grounds, children ride bicycles, and visitors from all over the world come to learn and reflect. The contrast between its tragic past and peaceful present makes the experience even more powerful. Surrounding the fortress, the city of Brest offers a charming and relaxed atmosphere. Tree-lined streets, cozy cafes, and the scenic riverfront make it a pleasant place to explore after your visit. Many travelers combine their trip to Brest Fortress with a walk through Brest's historic center or a visit to the famous Brest railway station, one of the oldest in the region. Visiting Brest Fortress is not just about seeing a landmark. It is about feeling history, understanding sacrifice, and appreciating the strength of the human spirit. It reminds you that behind every monument and every date in a textbook, there are real people, real stories, and real courage. So if you are traveling through Belarus, make sure Brest Fortress is on your list. It will leave you with more than photos. It will leave you with a deep sense of respect and reflection that stays with you long after you leave. Imagine walking into a forest so ancient that it feels untouched by time, where towering trees have stood for centuries and wildlife moves freely in the shadows. This is not a movie scene or a fantasy world. This is Belovezhskaya Pushcha, one of Europe's last primeval forests and one of the most magical places in Belarus. Belovezhskaya Pushcha National Park is a living museum of nature. Located on the border between Belarus and Poland, this forest has survived wars, empires, and industrialization. While much of Europe's wilderness disappeared, this forest remained protected by kings, rulers, and scientists who understood its value. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a symbol of nature's resilience. As you enter the forest, the air changes instantly. It becomes cooler, fresher, and filled with the scent of moss and pine. Sunlight filters through massive oak, spruce, and pine trees, some of which are over 600 years old. These giants have witnessed centuries of history, silently growing while the world outside transformed. The most famous residents of Belovezhskaya Pushcha are the European bison, also known as wisent. These majestic animals are the largest land mammals in Europe, and this forest is one of their last natural habitats. Seeing a bison calmly grazing among ancient trees is an unforgettable experience. It feels like stepping back into prehistoric times. But the forest is not just about bison. Wolves, lynxes, deer, wild boars, foxes, and hundreds of bird species call this place home. Birdwatchers from around the world visit to spot rare species, while nature lovers come to explore its peaceful trails. Every sound, every movement feels alive and mysterious. Walking paths and cycling routes wind through the forest, allowing visitors to explore at their own pace. Some trails are quiet and remote, where you might walk for minutes without seeing another person. Others lead to observation towers, where you can look out over endless green landscapes and listen to the wind moving through the trees. One of the most charming attractions here is the residence of Father Frost, the Slavic version of Santa Claus. This magical spot is especially popular with families and children. Wooden houses, fairy tale decorations, and festive activities make it feel like a real-life storybook village, especially during winter. The museum complex inside the park tells the story of the forest, its wildlife, and its conservation efforts. You can learn how scientists protect endangered species and maintain the delicate balance of this ecosystem. Interactive exhibits and panoramic viewpoints make it both educational and visually stunning. In every season, Belovezhskaya Pushcha feels different. In spring, flowers bloom and birds fill the forest with songs. In summer, sunlight paints the leaves in bright green. Autumn turns the forest into a golden wonderland, and winter covers everything in snow, creating a silent, enchanted landscape. Belovezhskaya Pushcha is not just a place to visit. It is a place to feel nature in its purest form. It reminds you how powerful and beautiful the natural world can be when it is protected and respected. If you want to experience the wild heart of Belarus, where nature still rules and time seems to slow down, Belovezhskaya Pushcha should be at the top of your travel list. This forest does not just impress you. It changes the way you see the world, leaving you with a deep sense of wonder and connection to the planet. Imagine standing before a castle that looks like it was pulled straight out of a medieval legend. Red brick towers rise against the sky. A quiet lake reflects their silhouette, and the wind carries stories of knights, kings, and centuries of drama. This is Mir Castle, one of the most iconic and cinematic places in Belarus. Mir Castle sits in the small town of Mir, but its presence feels far bigger than its surroundings. Built in the early 16th century, the castle has seen empires rise and fall. It has been owned by powerful families, attacked during wars, abandoned, restored, and finally recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Every stone here holds a story. As you approach the castle, the first thing you notice is its striking architecture. Gothic towers, Renaissance details, and Baroque touches blend into a unique design that feels both defensive and elegant. The thick walls and narrow windows remind you that this was once a fortress, built to withstand sieges and protect its inhabitants. Crossing the bridge and entering the courtyard feels like stepping into another century. The central courtyard is surrounded by tall towers and elegant galleries. You can almost imagine nobles walking across the stone floor, soldiers guarding the gates, and travelers arriving with news from distant lands. Inside the castle, beautifully restored halls reveal how aristocratic families once lived. Grand rooms with ornate ceilings, antique furniture, tapestries, and portraits bring history to life. Each room tells a different story of power, culture, and daily life in medieval and early modern Europe. One of the most fascinating parts of Mir Castle is its history of changing owners. It belonged to the Radziwiłłs family, one of the most influential noble families in Eastern Europe. Under their rule, the castle became not just a fortress, but a center of culture, education, and politics. Later, wars and political changes left the castle damaged and neglected, but restoration efforts in modern times brought it back to its former glory. The surrounding landscape makes Mir Castle even more magical. A calm lake mirrors the towers, creating postcard-perfect reflections, especially at sunrise and sunset. Green parks and gardens surround the castle, making it a peaceful place to walk, relax, and take in the scenery. Visitors can climb the towers for panoramic views of the countryside. From the top, you can see the town of Mir, rolling fields, and endless skies. It is a quiet, almost poetic view that makes you feel connected to centuries of travelers who stood in the same spot. Throughout the year, Mir Castle hosts festivals, concerts, medieval reenactments, and cultural events. Knights in armor, traditional music, and historical performances transform the castle into a living stage. These events make history feel real and exciting, especially for travelers who love immersive experiences. At night, Mir Castle becomes even more cinematic. Soft lights illuminate the towers and walls, and the reflection in the lake creates a dreamlike atmosphere. It feels like a scene from a fantasy film, where legends come alive after dark. Mir Castle is more than just a historical monument. It is a symbol of Belarusian heritage, resilience, and cultural pride. It shows how history can be preserved, restored, and shared with the world. If you want to experience a place where history, architecture, and atmosphere come together in a truly cinematic way, Mir Castle is a must-see destination. It is not just a castle. It is a journey through time, a visual masterpiece, and one of the most unforgettable wonders of Belarus. Picture a forest so ancient that it existed long before cities, before castles, before borders were drawn on maps. A place where massive trees rise like pillars of a natural cathedral, where mist drifts through the branches, and where wild animals still roam freely. This is Belovezhskaya Pushcha, one of the last primeval forests in Europe and one of the most breathtaking natural wonders of Belarus. Belovezhskaya Pushcha National Park is a vast wilderness that stretches across the border between Belarus and Poland. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a living time capsule of Europe's prehistoric landscape. Walking here feels like stepping into a world untouched by modern life. The forest is home to towering oak, pine, spruce, and ash trees, some of which are over 500 years old. Their massive trunks and twisted branches tell stories of centuries of storms, seasons, and silent growth. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy, creating a magical play of light and shadow on the forest floor. One of the most famous residents of Belovezhskaya Pushcha is the European bison, also known as the wisent. These powerful animals are the largest land mammals in Europe, and this forest played a crucial role in saving them from extinction. Seeing a bison move slowly through the trees is a rare and unforgettable experience, a reminder of how wild Europe once was. But bison are not the only wildlife here. Wolves, lynxes, deer, wild boar, and hundreds of bird species call this forest home. The sounds of birdsong, rustling leaves, and distant animal calls create a natural symphony that feels far removed from the noise of modern cities. Visitors can explore the park through scenic trails, cycling routes, and guided tours. Walking along these paths, you feel completely immersed in nature. The air is fresh, the silence is deep, and every step reveals something new, from rare plants to hidden clearings. Belovezhskaya Pushcha is also famous for its role in history. In 1991, a historic agreement was signed here that led to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. A quiet forest lodge became the setting for a moment that changed the political map of the world forever. There is also a unique cultural side to the park. Traditional villages, museums, and folklore centers nearby showcase Belarusian rural life, crafts, and traditions. You can learn about how people lived in harmony with the forest for generations, using its resources while respecting its power. In winter, the forest transforms into a snowy wonderland. Frost-covered trees, animal tracks in the snow, and silent white landscapes make it feel like a fairy tale. In summer, everything turns lush and green, with sunlight dancing through leaves and wildflowers blooming across the meadows. Belovezhskaya Pushcha is not just a forest. It is a symbol of nature's endurance and humanity's responsibility to protect it. It shows what Europe looked like thousands of years ago, and what can still be preserved for future generations. Standing among these ancient trees, you realize how small we are compared to nature, and how important it is to protect places like this. Belovezhskaya Pushcha is not just one of the wonders of Belarus. It is one of the greatest natural treasures in the world, a place where time slows down and the wild still reign. Imagine a place where history doesn't just live in books, but echoes through stone walls, shattered gates, and silent courtyards. A place where courage was tested at the dawn of one of the darkest chapters in human history. This is Brest Fortress, one of the most powerful and emotional landmarks in Belarus. Brest Fortress stands near the border with Poland, at a crossroads of cultures, empires, and armies. At first glance, it looks like a massive historic complex surrounded by rivers and greenery. But as you walk inside, you quickly realize this is more than a fortress. It is a symbol of resistance, sacrifice, and unbreakable spirit. The fortress was originally built in the 19th century as a defensive military stronghold of the Russian Empire. Its design was advanced for its time, with thick brick walls, underground tunnels, and strategically placed bastions. It was meant to be nearly impossible to conquer. But Brest Fortress became world famous in June 1941 during the opening days of World War II. When Nazi Germany launched its invasion of the Soviet Union, Brest Fortress was one of the first targets. The defenders were outnumbered, surrounded, and cut off from supplies. Yet they refused to surrender. For days and weeks, soldiers, border guards, and civilians fought inside the fortress. Even when ammunition and food ran out, resistance continued. Messages carved into the walls still remain, haunting and powerful, declaring loyalty, courage, and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Today, Brest Fortress is a massive memorial complex. As you enter, you pass through the iconic star-shaped entrance tunnel, where a dramatic opening reveals the central square. The sound of a solemn military melody often plays, creating an emotional atmosphere that prepares you for what lies ahead. One of the most striking monuments is the Courage Monument, a giant stone face emerging from rock. It represents the determination and strength of the defenders. Nearby, the obelisk bayonet rises high into the sky, symbolizing a weapon transformed into a memorial, pointing upward like a silent guardian. Walking through the ruins, you see preserved walls, bullet marks, and broken structures left intentionally untouched. These scars are not hidden. They are preserved as reminders of what happened here. The quietness of the place makes the history feel even more intense. The museum inside the fortress tells the full story with photographs, documents, personal belongings, and interactive displays. You learn about the soldiers, the families, and the ordinary people who became heroes. Their stories turn the fortress from stone and brick into a deeply human place. Despite its heavy history, Brest Fortress is also surrounded by peaceful nature. Rivers flow around the complex, trees grow between old walls, and birds sing above the monuments. This contrast between tragedy and tranquility makes the experience unforgettable. At sunset, the fortress takes on a cinematic beauty. Warm light touches the monuments, shadows stretch across the courtyards, and the sky reflects on the water. It feels both peaceful and powerful, a reminder that history continues to shape the present. Brest Fortress is not just a historical site. It is a symbol recognized across Eastern Europe as a place of heroic defense and human resilience. It teaches lessons about war, peace, courage, and the cost of conflict. Visiting Brest Fortress is an emotional journey. It is a place where silence speaks louder than words, where stone tells stories, and where the past feels incredibly close. It stands as one of the most profound wonders of Belarus, not for its beauty alone, but for the unforgettable story it carries. Imagine traveling through a country where every village, river, and forest tells a story, where ancient traditions survive in harmony with modern life, and where hidden gems await the curious traveler at every turn. This is Belarus beyond the cities and castles, a land of culture, villages, landscapes, and secrets that few outsiders have ever truly explored. While Minsk, Mir, and Nesvizh capture headlines with their monuments and history, the true soul of Belarus lies in its countryside and small towns. Here, life moves at a slower pace, allowing travelers to feel a deep connection with the land and its people. Rolling fields, dense forests, and winding rivers dominate the scenery, offering a sense of tranquility and timelessness that is rare in today's fast-paced world. The villages of Belarus are like living museums of traditional life. Wooden houses with carved windows, thatched roofs, and colorful gardens reflect centuries-old craftsmanship. Walking through these villages, you can feel the rhythm of life that has been maintained for generations. Locals still bake bread in clay ovens, tend to their livestock, and celebrate traditional festivals with dances, songs, and folk costumes that seem lifted from the past. One of the most fascinating aspects of Belarusian culture is its music and dance. Folk instruments like the duda, a traditional bagpipe, and the cymbalom create melodies that echo the landscapes themselves. In festivals, groups perform dances passed down for hundreds of years, their movements telling stories of love, war, and harvest. Participating in these celebrations is like stepping into a storybook where every rhythm connects you to the history of the land. Belarus is also a land of hidden architectural gems. Scattered throughout the countryside are small wooden churches, manor houses, and monasteries, many centuries old. Their facades are adorned with intricate carvings, colorful frescoes, and unique designs that reflect the mix of Slavic, Polish, Lithuanian, and Russian influences. These quiet structures offer moments of reflection and a chance to connect with a spiritual history that remains deeply rooted in the land. The natural landscapes of Belarus are equally compelling. Lakes, rivers, and wetlands create a rich environment for wildlife. Birdwatchers flock to places like Braslav lakes, where clear waters, islands, and pine forests create a peaceful retreat. In spring and summer, migratory birds fill the skies, while elk, deer, and foxes roam the forests, reminding visitors that Belarus is still a land of untamed beauty. National parks like Belovezhskaya Pushcha preserve ancient forests where European bison walk beneath trees that have stood for centuries. For those interested in history beyond castles and fortresses, Belarus offers a wealth of stories in small museums and historical complexes. Local guides bring these tales to life, whether recounting the heroic resistance of World War II, explaining the rise of medieval principalities, or sharing the stories of craftsmen who built villages and towns from nothing. These personal stories make history feel alive, intimate, and unforgettable. Food in Belarus is another cultural highlight. Traditional dishes like draniki, potato pancakes, often served with sour cream, hearty stews, fresh bread, and wild berries give visitors a taste of the country's agricultural abundance. Eating in a village home or a small tavern offers more than nourishment. It is a chance to experience the warmth, hospitality, and generosity of Belarusian people. The rivers and lakes of Belarus are not just scenic, they are lifelines that connect villages and towns. Canoeing along quiet waterways or watching the sunrise over a misty lake allows travelers to experience the peacefulness that makes Belarus so unique. In winter, frozen lakes become natural skating rinks, and forests covered in snow transform into magical white landscapes. As the sun sets over the countryside, golden light illuminates fields, rivers, and villages, creating a cinematic scene that feels timeless. The combination of natural beauty, cultural richness, and human stories makes Belarus a destination that surprises, inspires, and captivates. Belarus is more than castles and cities. It is a living, breathing country full of hidden wonders, resilient traditions, and landscapes that invite reflection and exploration. From ancient forests and serene lakes to vibrant folk festivals and quiet villages, Belarus reveals itself slowly, rewarding those who take the time to look. This is Belarus at its truest, a land of culture, history, and natural beauty, where every corner holds a story and every journey feels like a discovery. It is a place where past and present coexist, where people honor their traditions, and where the quiet magic of life leaves a lasting impression on every traveler who ventures off the beaten path. Imagine stepping deeper into the heart of Belarus, beyond castles, cities, and forests, into a land where every corner feels untouched by time. Here, the villages, rivers, and fields carry stories of centuries past, and the connection between people and nature remains unbroken. This is the Belarus that few travelers see, a country full of hidden treasures, ancient traditions, and landscapes that seem to stretch forever. The countryside of Belarus is where the true spirit of the nation comes alive. Rolling hills, vast meadows, and quiet forests dominate the scenery, interrupted only by quaint villages where wooden houses stand in rows, each adorned with intricate carvings and colorful shutters. In these villages, life moves at a pace dictated by the sun, the seasons, and the rhythms of the land. Here, you can witness daily life that has changed little over hundreds of years, from farmers tending fields with traditional tools to artisans crafting wood, clay, and textiles just as their ancestors did. Walking through a Belarusian village is like stepping into a living history book. Children play in cobblestone streets, women bake bread in traditional clay ovens, and elders sit under trees, sharing stories of past generations. Festivals are a highlight of this cultural tapestry. Seasonal celebrations mark planting and harvest cycles, and music, dance, and traditional costumes bring these events to life. Folk songs echo through village squares, telling tales of love, heroism, and the enduring bond between the people and the land. Belarus's architectural heritage extends beyond the famous castles. Wooden churches and chapels, many centuries old, dot the countryside. These structures are masterpieces of craftsmanship, with carved facades, vibrant frescoes, and steep, pitched roofs that reflect both the local climate and the creativity of their builders. Visiting these churches offers moments of quiet reflection, as if stepping into a spiritual space where the past is always present. Some are perched on hills overlooking rivers, providing panoramic views that feel almost sacred. Nature is inseparable from Belarusian culture. Lakes, rivers, and wetlands dominate the landscape, providing habitats for wildlife and spaces for human activity. Places like Braslav Lakes National Park offer crystal clear waters, forested islands, and secluded beaches that invite exploration. Canoeing along winding rivers, you might spot herons taking flight, beavers at work, or deer drinking at the water's edge. Belovezhskaya Pushcha, the ancient primeval forest, offers another layer of wonder, where European bison roam under centuries-old oaks and the silence of the forest feels almost sacred. Belarusian cuisine is an integral part of this journey through culture and land. Hearty dishes like draniki, potato pancakes, served with sour cream, warm bread, smoked meats, and wild berries reflect the connection between people and the land. Visiting a local home or tavern allows travelers not just to taste food, but to experience the warmth and hospitality of Belarusian people. Meals are often accompanied by stories, songs, or simple laughter, making every bite a connection to history and tradition. Rivers in Belarus serve as more than natural landmarks. They are lifelines connecting villages, towns, and ecosystems. Canoeing along the Neman, Dnieper, or Pripyat rivers allows travelers to witness landscapes largely untouched by industry. Mist rises from water at dawn, swans glide silently, and fishermen in wooden boats cast nets much like their ancestors did centuries ago. In winter, frozen lakes become skating rinks, while forests transform into silent snow-covered wonderlands. Every journey through Belarus reveals layers of history and culture, intertwined with nature. Ancient trade routes, former manors, and hidden fortresses can be discovered tucked away along quiet paths. Small museums tell local stories, displaying artifacts, folk costumes, and relics of daily life that reveal the resilience and creativity of the people. It is in these moments, far from urban centers, that travelers feel the living heartbeat of Belarus. As the sun begins to set, fields glow golden, rivers shimmer like molten silver, and villages are bathed in soft, warm light. This is the Belarus that lingers in memory, a country where time slows, where every view feels cinematic, and where the land and its people leave a lasting impression. Here, tradition and modernity coexist peacefully, creating an experience both timeless and immediate. Belarus is more than what appears on maps or in guidebooks. It is a journey through culture, nature, and history. Every village, forest, lake, and river holds stories waiting to be discovered. Traveling here is not just about sightseeing. It is about feeling, reflecting, and connecting to a land that has preserved its soul through centuries of change. This is Belarus, the hidden jewel of Europe, where every step brings a new discovery and every moment feels cinematic, an invitation to explore a world few have truly seen. Imagine venturing even deeper into Belarus, where the rhythm of life slows, and every landscape tells a story of endurance, culture, and timeless beauty. Beyond the famous castles, grand fortresses, and ancient forests lies a land where villages, rivers, and rolling fields create a mosaic of living history, offering travelers a cinematic experience unlike anywhere else in Europe. Belarusian villages are living windows into the past. Wooden houses, built with care and decorated with intricate carvings, line quiet streets where neighbors still know each other's names. Gardens overflow with vegetables and flowers, smoke curls from chimneys, and the daily routines of farming, baking, and crafting continue almost unchanged from centuries past. Walking through these villages, you feel connected to a way of life that honors the land, the seasons, and the community. Festivals bring these traditions to life. Seasonal celebrations mark planting, harvest, and religious holidays. Villagers wear brightly colored folk costumes, play traditional instruments like the duda and cymbalom, and perform dances that have been passed down for generations. The music is both joyous and haunting, echoing across open fields and drawing visitors into a world where culture and history are inseparable. Participating in these festivities allows travelers to experience the heartbeat of Belarusian life firsthand, creating memories that feel timeless. Religion and spirituality also shape the Belarusian countryside. Tiny wooden churches and ornate Orthodox chapels are scattered throughout the land. These sacred spaces often contain centuries-old frescoes, hand-carved iconostases, and steep, pitched roofs that rise above the surrounding trees. Visiting them offers quiet moments of reflection and a sense of connection to generations who have prayed, celebrated, and lived alongside these holy places. Some churches sit beside rivers or atop gentle hills, providing panoramic views that feel almost otherworldly. Belarus's natural beauty enhances every experience. From the crystal-clear lakes of Braslav to the winding rivers of the Pripyat, nature dominates the scenery. Mist often rises over the water in the early morning, creating a scene that feels both magical and cinematic. Forests echo with the calls of birds and the rustle of wildlife. In Belovezhskaya Pushcha, ancient oaks and spruces tower above the forest floor, sheltering European bison, lynxes, and deer. Every step here feels like walking through a living documentary of Europe's wild past. The rivers of Belarus are not just picturesque, they are the veins of history and daily life. Canoeing along these waterways, travelers can observe fishermen in wooden boats, birds gliding above the water, and occasional glimpses of wildlife drinking at the shore. During winter, frozen rivers and lakes become natural skating rinks, while snow-covered forests transform the landscape into a silent, enchanted world. In summer, fields are golden with grain, rivers sparkle in the sunlight, and the air is filled with the scent of flowers and freshly turned soil. Cuisine is another lens into Belarusian culture. Meals are hearty, simple, and deeply connected to the land. Potato pancakes, soups, fresh bread, and locally sourced meats reflect both necessity and artistry. Sharing a meal with locals allows travelers to taste centuries of tradition while enjoying the warmth of Belarusian hospitality. Meals often come with stories about the land, the family, while the community making every bite an experience steeped in history and human connection. Small museums, manor houses, and historic complexes throughout the countryside offer insights into the rich cultural tapestry of Belarus. They tell stories of noble families, artisans, and ordinary villagers whose lives shaped the country. Artifacts, folk costumes, documents, and reconstructed interiors provide a tangible link to the past. Walking through these spaces, you feel the pulse of history, not as a distant event, but as something lived, touched, and carried forward by people who cherish their traditions. As the day turns to evening, the Belarusian countryside transforms. Fields glow with the golden light of sunset, rivers shimmer, and small villages settle into a calm rhythm. Birds return to the trees, smoke curls from chimneys, and a serene silence blankets the land. It is a moment of cinematic perfection, a natural stage where light, color, and atmosphere combine to create an unforgettable scene. Belarus is a land of contrasts between past and present, tradition and modernity, wilderness and human settlement. It is a place where history lives not only in monuments and castles, but in the daily rhythms of life, the songs of the forest, and the stories shared around a family table. Exploring Belarus is an invitation to slow down, observe, and immerse yourself in a culture and landscape that has preserved its soul across centuries. This is Belarus in its purest form, a living, breathing canvas of history, nature, and human tradition. Every village, river, and forest invites discovery. Every moment feels cinematic, and every experience leaves an impression that lingers long after you leave. Here, travelers find not just sights, but stories, connection, and the quiet magic of a land that time is treated gently, yet profoundly. Imagine wandering through Belarus, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, where every forest path, quiet village, and winding river carries the weight of centuries, and where nature and culture are inseparably woven together. This is the Belarus that reveals itself slowly, a country that rewards those who take the time to look beyond the obvious, beyond castles and cities, into the living soul of the land. The villages of Belarus are timeless. Wooden houses with ornate shutters and carved eaves line narrow streets, each garden brimming with flowers, vegetables, and herbs. Daily life moves in harmony with the seasons. Farmers tend fields with centuries-old techniques. Artisans shape wood, clay, and textiles just as their ancestors did. And locals gather to celebrate festivals that have survived hundreds of years. Here, history is not preserved in books, it lives in every step, every gesture, and every smile. Seasonal festivals are among the most immersive experiences a traveler can witness. Spring brings planting rituals, while summer celebrates the abundance of harvest. Folk songs fill the air, accompanied by dances that twist and twirl in rhythmic patterns, and traditional instruments like the duda and cymbalam provide a soundtrack to centuries-old stories. Wearing colorful costumes, villagers perform dances and songs that tell of love, courage, and the deep connection to the land. For an outsider, participating in even a single festival is like stepping into a living, breathing storybook. Religion and spirituality shape the countryside. Ancient Orthodox and Catholic churches are scattered across the land, many made of wood and richly decorated with carvings and frescoes. Some of these sacred spaces have been standing for hundreds of years, surviving wars, political changes, and the passage of time. Stepping inside, the quiet hum of prayers and the soft flicker of candlelight create a connection to generations past, a reminder that human belief and devotion are as enduring as the forests themselves. Belarus's natural landscapes are equally awe-inspiring. Braslav Lakes National Park, with its shimmering waters, dense forests, and scattered islands, is a sanctuary for wildlife and a paradise for photographers and explorers. Canoeing along the pristine lakes, you might see swans gliding silently across the water, herons lifting into the air, or deer drinking at the shore. Belovezhskaya Pushcha, Europe's last primeval forest, is a cathedral of ancient trees, where European bison roam beneath oaks that have stood for centuries, and where the silence of nature is so deep it feels almost sacred. Rivers are veins of life and culture throughout the country. The Neman, Dnieper, and Pripyat rivers carry water, history, and stories along their winding paths. Canoeing or walking along these waterways offers moments of pure tranquility. In winter, frozen lakes and rivers become natural skating rinks, while snow-covered forests transform the landscape into a silent, magical wonderland. In summer, the air is filled with the scents of wildflowers and pine, and the long days provide endless opportunity for exploration. Cuisine offers a taste of Belarusian history and connection to the land. Draniki, potato pancakes served with sour cream, warm breads, hearty stews, and smoked meats provide nourishment and a direct link to generations of agricultural life. Sharing a meal in a village home or small tavern is not merely eating, it is a cultural experience, an intimate connection with locals who open their hearts and homes to visitors. Each bite tells a story, blending flavors, tradition, and human warmth. Small museums, restored manors, and historical complexes enrich the traveler's experience. These sites preserve and share the stories of noble families, artisans, and ordinary villagers who shaped Belarus over centuries. Artifacts, folk costumes, paintings, and letters bring history to life, allowing visitors to understand not only events but the people who lived through them. Here, history is not abstract, it is tactile, vivid, and unforgettable. As the sun begins to set over the Belarusian countryside, fields glow golden, rivers sparkle, and forests cast long, dramatic shadows. Villages settle into calm rhythms, smoke curls from chimneys, and the land exudes a quiet, cinematic beauty. It is a moment that feels both eternal and fleeting, where light, color, and landscape converge to create an unforgettable memory. Belarus is a land of contrast and harmony, past and present, wilderness and human settlement, tradition and quiet modernity. Every forest, village, and river carries its own story, waiting to be discovered. Traveling here is not just about seeing the sights, it is about feeling, connecting, and immersing yourself in a country that has preserved its spirit through centuries of change. This is Belarus at its purest, untouched, enduring, and cinematic. Every step invites discovery, every landscape inspires reflection, and every encounter leaves a lasting impression. Here, travelers do more than explore, they experience a living world where history, culture, and nature exist in perfect balance. Imagine traveling through Belarus where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, where every village street, every quiet riverbank, and every ancient forest path tells a story, and where life moves with a rhythm that seems untouched by modernity. Here, in the heart of Eastern Europe, the essence of Belarus reveals itself slowly, layer by layer, moment by moment, and scene by cinematic scene. The Belarusian countryside is a tapestry of rolling fields, dense forests, and scattered villages. Wooden homes with elaborately carved window frames and brightly painted shutters stand as living testaments to craftsmanship passed down through generations. Gardens overflow with vegetables, herbs, and flowers, while smoke curls from chimneys signaling the warmth and life within. This is a land where daily routines, farming, baking, crafting blend seamlessly with tradition, creating a living snapshot of centuries-old ways of life. Festivals in the villages are breathtaking displays of Belarusian culture. Seasonal celebrations mark planting, harvest, and religious holidays. Folk music fills the air, with instruments like the duda and cymbalum providing melodies that have echoed through the countryside for centuries. Villagers dressed in vibrant traditional costumes perform dances that tell stories of love, bravery, and the enduring bond between people and land. Participating in these events allows travelers to experience history in motion, where music, dance, and storytelling are inseparable from daily life. Religious heritage is woven deeply into the landscape. Tiny wooden Orthodox churches and ornate chapels, some centuries old, are scattered across the countryside. Their carved facades, steep roofs, and colorful interiors are both architectural marvels and spiritual havens. Lighting a candle, listening to quiet prayers, or standing in reflection inside these sacred spaces allows visitors to connect to the generations that built, protected, and revered them. Some of these churches perch atop hills overlooking rivers and fields, offering panoramic views that feel almost otherworldly. Belarus's natural beauty is extraordinary and cinematic in scale. Braslav Lakes, with its clear waters, forested islands, and scenic beaches, is a sanctuary for wildlife and a haven for travelers seeking serenity. Canoeing along the lakes, you may spot herons lifting gracefully into the sky, deer drinking quietly at the shore, or the occasional swan gliding across the water. Belovezhskaya Pushcha, Europe's last primeval forest, is a living cathedral of trees, where centuries-old oaks and spruces tower above the forest floor and European bison roam freely. The silence of the forest is profound, broken only by birdsong or the gentle rustling of leaves, creating a spiritual experience for those who venture within. Rivers in Belarus are not only lifelines of nature, but also threads that connect history and culture. The Neman, Dnieper, and Pripyat rivers have shaped settlement patterns, agriculture, and trade for centuries. Canoeing along these waterways immerses visitors in a quiet, reflective world where the past feels tangible. In winter, frozen rivers transform into natural skating rinks. In summer, wildflowers bloom along the banks and the sunlight shimmers across gentle currents, creating a living, moving painting. Cuisine in Belarus is a bridge between culture, history, and daily life. Draniki, potato pancakes served with sour cream, hearty soups, fresh breads, smoked meats, and wild berries are not just meals, they are an immersion into tradition. Eating with local families or at village taverns allows travelers to experience warmth, hospitality, and the stories that accompany every dish. Food becomes a vehicle for connection, revealing centuries of adaptation to the land and seasons. Historic manors, small museums, and local complexes provide windows into Belarusian culture and memory. They preserve stories of noble families, craftsmen, and ordinary villagers, showcasing artifacts, folk costumes, tools, and documents. These spaces allow visitors to grasp the human dimension of history, connecting personal stories with broader events, and creating a sense that the past is alive and accessible. As twilight descends, the Belarusian landscape transforms into a scene of cinematic wonder. Fields turn gold in the setting sun, rivers reflect the sky like mirrors, and the silhouettes of forests and villages stretch into the distance. Smoke rises from chimneys in the fading light, birds settle into trees, and the air is filled with the quiet hum of nature settling for the night. It is a moment of reflection, awe, and profound connection to the land. Belarus is a land of contrasts, ancient and modern, wild and cultivated, solemn and joyful. Every forest, village, and river tells a story. Every experience layers culture, history, and nature together. Traveling here is not just sightseeing, it is a journey of immersion, feeling, and understanding. This is Belarus at its most cinematic, a land where time slows, stories linger, and every step offers discovery. From quiet villages and sacred churches to forests that feel eternal, rivers that carry history, and festivals alive with color and sound, Belarus invites travelers to witness its soul. Here, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and every moment feels unforgettable, leaving a lasting impression that remains long after the journey ends. Belarus is more than a destination, it's a living story, a place where the past and present meet, where nature's beauty and human resilience intertwine, and where every step feels like stepping into a new chapter of history. From enchanted forests and serene lakes to centuries-old villages and grand castles, this country shows that true wonder is found not just in monuments, but in the stories, traditions, and landscapes that endure through time. Thank you for traveling with us through the heart of Belarus. If this journey inspired you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and start planning your own adventure to experience the hidden magic of Belarus for yourself. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring Prague as much as I enjoyed guiding you through it. If you found this travel guide helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful destinations from around the world. Got a favorite spot in Prague?